Jamie the Cabby here. I've been invited today down to St John's Wood to the Chapel Shelter by Andy from London Taxi PR to come and take part in a series of promotional things that London Taxi PR are doing, all to do with 150 years of taxi shelters, Cabman Shelters. So we're going to go inside and see Andy and Colin Evans, who is one of the trustees of the Cabmans Shelter Fund, and they're going to tell us a bit about the history of these shelters that you can see behind us.
So as you drive around London, you may have seen some of these weird looking green shed type buildings at the side of the road, and you may have thought to yourself, what are they? Well, these are Cabman Shelters, or taxi drivers' shelters, and there are 13 of them left in existence around London, dotted at the side of the road, where cab drivers can go and get a hot drink and something to eat. There used to be a lot more of them, and in this series of videos we're going to find out a lot more about these particular Cabman shelters. This one that we're looking at now is in Wellington Place in St John's Wood, and it was the first Cabman shelter to be erected in London. It's not in its original location, as we're going to find out when we go inside and speak to Andy Scott from London Taxi PR and Colin Evans from the Cabman Shelter Fund. So let's go inside.
Morning, Colin.
Morning, Andy.
Morning all. So we're here this morning. I'm Andy from London Taxi PR, for those that don't know me. This is Colin Evans, one of the trustees of the Cabmans Shelter Fund. And we're here to sort of kick off the 150th year of the cab shelters, the iconic green hut taxi shelters that you will see around London, of which there are 13 remaining, 11 currently in service. And we wanted to announce and tell everyone that this year is the 150th anniversary from their inception in 1875. We're in St John's Wood, also known to those in the trade as the Chapel, due to its close proximity to St John's Wood Church. This was the first of the iconic green hut taxi shelters. Wasn't where it was initially when it kicked off, which was over in Acacia Road. Founded by Captain George Armstrong, who was editor of the Globe newspaper, who got together with several entrepreneurial friends of his, which included, I believe, one of the royal family. There was the Earl of Shaftesbury and the Prince of Wales, who later became Edward VII. They got together, set up the Cabmans Shelter Fund, and initially there were about 64 shelters, I think I'm right in saying, Colin?
Actually, Andy, I think at the height it was 61.
Right.
And they deteriorated obviously after the World War I and World War II, and lots of streets and bombings, and we lost a lot of shelters at that time. The importance of the 150 years is the fact of this was our first shelter, and as Andy said, it was due to the fact that the drivers at that particular time couldn't really stop anywhere, and if it was cold and wet and damp and rainy, they would have nowhere to go, and that's why Captain Armstrong couldn't find a cab that day, because all the drivers, horse-drawn carriages at that time, were in the pubs, keeping warm. And so the idea of putting a shelter up was that drivers could tether their horses to the shelter, go into the shelter. It was temperate, there was no drinking allowed, no swearing, no politics at all. It's changed quite a lot since then, of course. Most of them things.
Several of them things have been inserted back into these shelters.
Absolutely. And this particular shelter, Wellington, is in Wellington Place, and as Andy said, originally in Acacia Road. And the reason is this was the last shelter to be given Grade 2 heritage listing, so it's listed building. And of course, now it's in Wellington Place, and as you say, it's now got the chapel, as its name is called. I'd like to also say that we've got shelter keeper Andre here, does a fantastic job promoting the trades as well as serving customers at the window. We'd like to have, it's 150 years, so we want to promote it. We're like to have more of the younger drivers to come into the shelters.
Indeed.
And at the moment they seem a little bit too busy having to work, obviously. They don't have a lot of time to stop. But somehow or other, it's important that we do get the younger drivers in the trade, otherwise it's dying out. But anything else, Andy, that we can do coming up?
Indeed. Well, we're going to be planning a series of events to mark the occasion throughout the year. So it's going to be a question of watch this space, because there will be various things happening. There may well be people that you will recognise popping into these shelters or being outside to be interviewed or whatever. But also just to remind people that the shelters are open to the general public at the window, which there has been this misconception really with people not thinking that they can be served at the window when they can be, but it's only inside where it's cabbies only. I've got permission to be in here, which I'm grateful for. And the shelters really need to be used as much as possible. Obviously they're open specific times throughout the day. As we've said, there are 11 in service at the moment. They're a vital, iconic piece of the taxi trade history, and they need to be preserved. And we want to mark the occasion rightly. We will be going around visiting them, and we'll be doing various things. Like I say, watch this space, because we could be visiting your shelter soon.
Good morning.
Yes, I think that's that's going to be a good year for the Cab Shelter Fund to start to promote what we've got. We want to keep, and that's the most important.
Indeed.
And they are novel. People walk past them sometimes, not even knowing what it is. But once you give them a little bit of history, Maximilian Clark's architectural design of where they were. It's quite interesting, and they want to come inside. And like I've said to people before, I always say that it's not little inside. When you go in, it's like the TARDIS. You can go in, it opens out into a big ballroom. Okay, there's a big bar over there, the band are over there. You can go in there and have a good night. But seriously, we are doing this to keep the shelters a part of our history. It's very important we do that for the London cab trade. And considering we go back nearly 300 years to Oliver Cromwell, it's quite important. We've got a lot of history to catch up on.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And a couple more interesting facts. I think they're all painted in Buckingham Green.
Yeah,
Buckingham,
Buckingham Green. Yeah, that's.
And they couldn't be longer than a hansom carriage and a horse.
Yeah, Hackney carriage and a horse, and that to be that length. And that's what I said. That's. And when you think about it, going 1875, it was mostly horse-drawn Hackney carriage, Hackney carriages. It wasn't until about the 1900s that motorised transport come in, and obviously become the 50-50. But after that First World War, a lot of people was away. A lot of cab drivers were called up because they could drive. That was one of the issues as well. The trouble was that the army requisitioned horses. And the trade had horses and carriages, and they could be managed. And because we lost a lot of people during that war, in the World War, and that's all part. These are what we're saying. These are all parts of our history, and I'm sure anyone who comes into the shelters or comes to the shelter, the window, the shelter keepers will always give you a quick nose up about what's going on. I'm sure you know that, don't you?
Indeed. Yeah. And you never know who you might see in there. As well. So the message is support those who support the profession.
Hello, I'm Andre. I run the Chapel Shelter in St John's Wood, the first shelter in London, and it's our 150th birthday, and I would like to wish every other shelter keeper a happy 150th birthday and doing a great job for looking after our great cab drivers. So you're all welcome to visit the public. It's open to the public at the window, and all the other cab drivers, and happy birthday.
If you want to find out more about these iconic listed structures dotted around the London streets, then please like and subscribe to my channel, where we'll have more content and more shelters, possibly with some celebrity guests along the way as well. Thanks for watching.